Hello and welcome to another episode of the Marc Medley Show. On today's Marc Medley Show, we're going to talk a little bit about a little bit of everything. It's kind of like the world according to Marc, January of 2023. I'm going to cover a couple of different topics, and a couple of them actually are based on readings from Letitia Nicole and from Iyanla Van Zant. So we're going to talk a little bit about our essence and are not taking life for granted, and just how I see life in January of 2023. Take a listen. As always, you can reach out to me by visiting my website, marcamedley.com.
The 7th. That essence that Iyanla is talking about, that's your spirit, that's your soul, that's what's within you. That's the part that does not get old. That's the part that's inside of me that feels the same that it felt when I was 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. The physical body is one thing. The physical body does what the physical body does or does not do based on aging. But the inside of you, that's the part that lives on when the outside of us is decaying. I was having a conversation the other night because I had one of these things that you can, it's going to sound gross, but, follow me, where you can scrape the dead skin off of your feet, to keep them smooth and, supple and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm sitting there, I'm literally, it's almost like a piece of sandpaper, sanding down a rough piece of wood. That's literally what it was like. And I'm sitting there watching as this comes off of me and it's dust. And I said to the person I was speaking with, we really are dust. If I never seen it before, I saw it that night when I was smoothing out the bottom of my feet, when I was smoothing out my feet, and they are nice and smooth and supple now, but I was smoothing them out. And as I was doing that, like I said, I had this little machine. It's just like a thing of sanders, like a sander for wood. And the dust was literally coming off. And I said, we really are dust. Because that's where they get into, at the funerals where they're saying, at the burial sites, they usually say ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And that's why in the Bible it says, God created us from the dust of the earth. He really did. But that's our outer bodies. That inner part of us continues on. And that's the part that really doesn't get old. That's the part that still feels like the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20-year-old, 15-year-old. That's the part in me when people are saying, oh, you seem so young. That's the part in me that's still young. It's the inside. I mean, I look at pictures. I see the difference between when I was 20 versus when I was 60. I look at the difference between when I was 8 versus when I was 28. So you can see, and that's what Iyanla's talking about. I'm going on based on what the reading was, based on what Iyanla said, because, we can see the physical changes on the outside. But what are we doing for our insides? What are we doing for our spirit selves? What are we doing for our essence, as she calls it? What are we doing for our souls? What are we doing for the spirit piece? And you heard me exclaim when she got to the silence piece, because, again, as you get older, you get to appreciate silence more. I work with kids every day. You hear it every week. And I tell you, I have kids who are afraid of silence. I have students in the school who are afraid of silence. Because whenever we go into like silent mode or meditation mode or mindfulness mode and we get them to be quiet, there is somebody in there that has to make a noise. Like the silence be killing them. Like they have to make, and that's a sad statement because that tells me that they are so accustomed, that they've normalized chaos. They've normalized noise. They've normalized drama. That when you remove it and the absence of it, they don't know how to respond. They literally don't know how to respond to silence. They have to make some type of noise. They'll either sigh or they'll tap or they'll make some other kind of noise or they'll drop a pencil or they'll drop a book or they'll close their Chromebook down loud or anything to make any kind of noise. And I've told them, I said, some of you are afraid of silence. Now that's different. Some of you right now are thinking, gee, I never thought about that. I hope that's exactly what you're doing. But there are folks who are afraid of silence. They're afraid of it being quiet. because they have gotten so accustomed to noise and chaos and drama and something having to be going on. And that's the whole point of mindfulness, and that's the whole point of meditation, because what mindfulness does is it wants you to really focus on what's going on around you. So if there is a noise, they want you to hear it and feel it, what's going on around you. Like, take a listen to what's going outside of your window. You might hear cars going by, or you might hear the wind, or you might hear whatever. So that's what mindfulness is all about. But when you start getting into meditation, you're looking within. You're looking within and you're going within, and usually in order to go within, you need to get quiet. And there are folks, and I say, the reason I use students as an example is because I'm with them every day. But there are some grown-ups who are afraid of silence too. Make no mistake about it. There are some adults who are just as afraid of silence as some of the students, some of the children. They are. So I'll tell you what, as Ian is saying, take some time just to get somewhere, even if it's nothing but for 5 minutes, or work your way up. I'm going to do 1 minute of silence. Next day, I'm going to do 3 minutes of silence. Next day, I'm going to do 5 minutes of silence. Work your way up to the point where you can go for long periods of time of just being quiet. And I'm going to say again, for those of us who are older, you begin to appreciate silence. You really do. Now, as a kid, okay, you may want some noise going on, but I can go around all day and not turn on the television, not turn on the radio. I may turn on the computer and type something or do something on there or interact or do what I need to do on there, check emails, answer emails, or, take my Spanish lesson or whatever. But I can be just as quiet, have absolutely no problem with being quiet at all. When I had my job at the school, I can close my office door and sit in there just as quiet. Sometimes they don't even know I'm in there. Like, is he in there? I'm in it. I can be just as quiet. I don't need a lot of noise and a lot of chaos. I really don't. Going back to our opening song with Great Work, I told you that song fires me up, and it really fires me up when he gets to that part about the ancestors. And, again, going back to this whole essence thing, yeah, our ancestors are within us. It's to the point with me in terms of reverence for my ancestry, whether it's immediate ancestry or ancestors that I don't even know anything about other than their names, or, I was doing my application for this doctoral program. Even in my essay, in the essay that I had to write for the application, I referenced our ancestors. In other words, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Like Brian Courtney Wilson says, our mothers' mothers and our fathers' fathers, we were just the faint notion of a dream before their eyes. Just, we're not going to get there. That's what Dr. King was saying. I may not get there with you. Speaking of Dr. King, it's January. This is his month. I may not get there with you. That's what our ancestors were saying as well. That's not going to happen for us, but my prayer is generations down the line, it will happen for. So I'm in those generations, even though things are bad, but they're not as bad as they were, but they're still bad. I'm in that generation of where things can happen regardless of the color of my skin. Now, will it be obstacles? Yes. Are some of this racism and all that stuff still there? Yes, it is. But nowhere close to where it was, even though some folks would like to take it back there. But it's nowhere close to where it was. And it's incumbent upon us to make sure that it does not get back there. So even within my application, the doctoral application, I referenced my ancestry. It's that important because this is, again, going back to my students, I'm constantly sharing with them, you take for granted the way that things are now, but they haven't always been that way, and it hasn't been that long ago. You couldn't just get on a bus and sit wherever you wanted to. You couldn't go in a movie theater and sit where you wanted to. You couldn't go in a store and be serviced in the front of the store. You had to go to the back of the store, if not outside of the store. It hasn't always been the way that it is now. So I'm constantly trying to help them understand, don't take for granted that the way things are now is the way things always were. Matter of fact, I have some wonderful conversations with my students. And this week, because on Monday night on the football game, a tragedy occurred, and that gave me another wonderful opportunity to help my students and adults understand why not to take life for granted. That young man is younger than my daughters. I have kids older than this young man that collapsed on Monday night. Went to that football game, had no idea that was going to occur. Nobody did. That's the thing about life. And I told you this last week. We don't know from second to second, minute to minute what's going to happen. They're playing a normal football game, Monday night football game. It was Buffalo and I believe if it was Cincinnati, I think that's what they were playing because I didn't watch the game. Normally, sometime on Monday nights I will watch the game. But I didn't watch it Monday night, and everybody was talking about this particular hit. And I started seeing light up on social media about this particular hit in the game and the young man collapsing, Damar Hamlin. Now, Mr. Hamlin, 24, suffered a cardiac arrest after making a tackle, okay? 24 years old. Like I said, I have children older than Damar. I have a 28-year-old and a 33-year-old. So I have children older than Damar. All right? We can't take life for granted. I say this every week with you all, that we just cannot take, because from minute to minute, we do not know what's going to happen next. We don't know what's going to happen with our finances. We don't know what's going to happen within our relationships. We don't know what's going to happen with our jobs. We don't know what's going to happen with us, within our bodies. Because the thing is, Mr. Hamlin didn't know he had what he had, or his heart was the way it was. He's been an athlete. Most football players have been playing football since they were little, since they were 7, 8, 9 years old. They've been on some type of football team. Most of them, not all of them, because every now and again, you'll get the person that came over to this country that didn't even know what football was. They'll come over from Africa, or they'll come over from somewhere in the Caribbean, or they'll come over from like Australia or somewhere like that. They have no clue of what the game football is. They get here, are gifted at it, and they make the NFL. There are a few stories like that, but most of the kids here have been playing football since they were a child. So usually on those teams, you have to get a physical. And certainly once you get to high school and college, you do physicals. And once you get to the NFL, they do physicals. But there are times when there are things that are undetected. In this case, had no idea that young man, 24 years old, was just going to collapse from cardiac arrest. Thank God he's still here. Thank God there was enough people around there that were able to rush onto the field and were able to resuscitate him, which has now brought on a whole nother thought in terms of being CPR trained, being able to do CPR, to be able to do the procedures. I mean, now, you know, that has really now brought to the forefront, you know what, maybe I do need to learn how to do that, to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, to do CPR, to be able to, you know, because, again, we were having a conversation the other night when I was at my fraternity meeting, and we were talking about speaking with a paramedic, a firefighter, you know, one of the first responders. And what the gentleman was saying was, in many instances, folks die because in the time it takes them to get from wherever they are to you, and even though that might be 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, within those 5 minutes, if somebody was there doing CPR, they could have saved a life. A lot of time the person goes within that time it takes the ambulance to get to the residence or wherever you are. So thank God somebody, because I know that all the teams have team doctors but they knew what to do. They got out there and they resuscitated him and got him to the hospital. So thankful, even though he was in critical condition, because I hear he's improving daily, he's still alive. Now, I lost my father to a heart attack. I know exactly everything that goes along with that. My father was 48 years old whenever he got hit with a heart attack out of the blue. All right. So and this guy was half of my dad's age. My dad was 48. Damar's 24. But that was not expected. That's where I'm going with that. We do not know from a day-to-day basis what's going to happen. Even when you think everything is la-di-da, it can quickly go la-di-da left. It can quickly go la-di-da right. Quickly. Whenever these various storms come up, when these hurricanes and tornadoes and floods and all that stuff, think about this. And going back to Letitia's book about tangible items, things that took you years to amass can be wiped out in less than seconds. These so-called fancy houses that everybody put all the stock in, all these wonderful and great cars that everybody gets so caught up in driving that I have to have this name if I'm going to drive in the street. All these fancy clothes and designer names, which to me is silly, but in any event, that's another discussion, can be wiped out in seconds. Whenever everything was going on in California, the fires, We had celebrities whose these million and quillion dollar homes was destroyed. Things that takes years to
sure I understand.
Things that takes I love it. My watch for some reason just loves to respond to me. But things that take years to amass can be wiped out in seconds. And yet everybody gets so hung up on these tangible items. I'm not one of them. I'm telling you now. I don't have to have the fanciest house in the world. I never had a luxury car. And I don't know if I'll ever get, even though my dream is to get a Porsche at some point. I don't know. Maybe I'll get that Porsche, maybe I won't. But it's not because I want to have a Porsche to be showing off. It's just that I like the car. All right? But you have folks who get so caught up in these so-called status symbols, and these status symbols can be taken away so quickly. And that's what Iyanla's trying to get to, and so was Letitia. That we get so caught up on tangible items. See, I'm not one that has to have the fanciest kitchen. I don't have to have the fanciest bathroom. I just need a bathroom that works. I just need a kitchen that has a stove in it where I can cook, and a sink where I can wash my dishes. It doesn't have to be the fanciest marble. It doesn't have to be the fanciest this, that, and the other. It doesn't, because I'm a very functional person. We used to laugh at my dad because he always said he was practical. Me and my sister would laugh at him. We'd laugh at the word practical. Now I know what it is because I'm practical too. I'm like Dr. Rick in terms of me becoming my parent. I understand practical, and I'm good. That's what I'm telling you. I have never had a fancy car, luxury car. My latest car that I drive now is a Kia. I've had a Dodge Shadow. I've had a Nissan Xterra. I've had a Honda Accord. I don't have to get into the Mercedes and the Bentleys and the Maybachs and the this, that, and the other. I don't have to get into those. Because my thing is, I just need to get from point A to point B. I don't have to be out there trying to show off going from point A to point B. I don't have to have the latest kitchen. I don't. Now, they're nice, don't get me wrong. I'm not angry with anybody who wants that. If that's what you want, hey, that's fine. But you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to go back to my mom's statement again, which I agree with. No one has seen a U-Haul behind a hearse. And even if you have, and you take the stuff with you and you put it in the ground with you, that's as far as it's going. It ain't going with you. Back to that essence that Iyanla was talking about. All these material things is not going to go with your essence. It's not going with my essence. It's not. So, let's not get so caught up on, oh, I got this, I got that, because it don't take long to lose it. Take it from one who knows. I'm not a big Tom Brady fan, and I was having this conversation the other day as well. Football-wise, I was not a big Tom Brady fan. Divorce-wise, yeah, I'm a Tom Brady fan. Now, that sounds odd, that sounds strange, it sounds cold, it sounds cruel. But I tell you what, Tom Brady's going on with his life. And I saw something the other day, and he just seems to have a penchant for models, I guess, but Tom moved from one model to another model. You want to talk cars? You know how you go from one model of car to, an updated model of car? So if you have like a 2010 and then you get to 2023, you kind of, you might have the same model. That's what Tom Brady's doing, at least rumored. I don't know if it's true or not, but, the rumor that I saw the other day, I was like, my goodness. Go ahead, Tom Brady. I'm not a Tom Brady football fan, but I must say I'm a Tom Brady divorce fan. I'm like, oof. Okay, I digress.
Well, thank you for listening to The Marc Medley Show. This has been another episode of The Marc Medley Show, and I thank you so much for listening. Again, you can hear me live each Saturday morning from 6 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock a.m. on GoBrave.org and 88.7 FM. Also, you can catch me with these episodes of the podcast, The Marc Medley Show. Please visit my website, as that is the hub for everything. You can get in touch with me. You can find out all my social media sites. You can find out more about the show, the radio show, more about this podcast. All of that is available to you by visiting marcamedley.com. That's MarcAmedley.com. Well, this is the first podcast episode for 2023. It is life as I see it at the moment.